Hey guys, welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles! In the last episode, we had a very interesting thing happen. We had the cross-examination finished and presented some evidence, and Royal Beat and his wife shared some very insightful things about themselves. And that was really cool. I hope you saw the last episode, so if you didn't, just go back. It was very moving, and even Barak van Ziegs showed some empathy, although he didn't show it directly, but the way he did it was very appealing. I really liked how the story unfolded at this point in the game, and I really recommend you go back and watch it if you haven't already. But in this episode, we are supposed to start with naming the other person who could have perpetrated the crime. And I'm actually going with Joan Garidebbs in this incident, so let's go with her.
Take that!
The defense would once again like to request the cross-examination of a new witness, my lord. Once again? My assistant made the same request earlier, in order to finally reveal the truth about this case. It's imperative that we cross-examine juror number 4, Mrs. Joan Garridebbs.
Me, oh dearie me.
Objection!
That request has already been denied.
Objection!
But the situation is very different now. Mrs. Garridebbs, answer me this.
What do you want now, you little toad?
At the time of the incident, you were engaged in a violent argument with your husband, Mr. John Garridebbs. In the course of the argument, a minor house fire was ignited, and to clear the smoke from the room, your husband opened a window that looks out over Briar Road.
Well, what of it?
You threw this book at your husband when he was cornered with his back against the window. Upon striking the pane of the open-top hinged casement window, the book plummeted directly down, finding its way to what we know to be the true scene of the incident.
Yes, and as I said, what of it?
During the argument, you were beside yourself with rage. As such, you threw not just books, but anything you could lay your hands on. So, let me ask you one more time, Mrs. Garridebs. This knife, the one removed from the victim's back, have you really never laid eyes on it before?
Oh! I don't recall it.
Seriously?
Am I supposed to remember everything I picked up and threw at my husband? And anyway, the man over there and all the regalia said members of the jury needn't testify, didn't he?
Conveniently, yes.
Objection!
Sorry, guys. No, I have no recollection of saying that at all. Juror number 4.
Oh!
Make no mistake, you jurors are not special in any way. You are not immune to the judicial process. If you know something about this knife, madam, let the truth come out.
But that's just a common... Oh, garden knife. It could have come from anywhere. We have several like that at home. If one went missing, how would you expect me to know?
What's that? Are you joking? What are you saying, please, Mrs. Garridebbs?
Now you listen to me. I refuse to believe all this nonsense. I couldn't bear the thought that I'd injured someone. Do you hear? I couldn't bear it.
Oh, the poor woman.
So, yes, I want evidence. I want to see hard evidence if you're going to insist on this being my fault. You're going to have to prove that to me that I threw that knife if that's what you think. Come along now. Chop chop. Do your worst.
Well, Mr. Naruto, if I had evidence like that, believe me, I would have thrown it at her already. Then take the stand, juror.
Oh!
The prosecution does not object to the defense's request to cross-examine this woman. Thank you, Lord von Zix.
I'm going to have to testify.
Juror number 4, as I'm sure you will appreciate having observed it with your own eyes today. Witness testimony can lead to the most extraordinary truths being unearthed. Truths of which the witnesses themselves may not even have been aware.
Oh, dearie me.
So I demand your full and unadulterated testimony, Mrs. Garridebbs. And mark my words, in this court of law today, we shall extract the truth. Do you concur, counsels? Certainly, my lord. Oh, that's what I'm hoping for, my lord. Oh, this took a really incredible turn. This is such a strange feeling. For the first time since arriving in this country, it actually feels real. I'm here in the Old Bailey, and I'm a lawyer. Witness, state your name and occupation.
Oh, yes, my name is Joan Garidebbs. And well, I'm a juror and such like.
It sounds like even she doesn't know if she's a housewife or a maid or what anymore. The court has decided your testimony is required in order to clarify matters in this case. Do you understand, madam?
Yes, my lord.
You will tell the court everything that took place in your household on the evening in question. And I warn you, do not attempt to hide the truth.
Oh, dearie me.
Chin up, Joni. Nothing to worry about now.
Oh, I didn't know you were here, John.
Wasn't only you in the room that day, old thing, was it? Rather think I ought to testify as well, don't you?
But what about your knee, dear?
Don't you worry about that. Hardly notice it. I'm not the sort of chap to leave comrade to face disciplinary action alone.
Oh, John.
I presume you are Mr. John Garridebs. Yes, sir. Former 2nd Lieutenant of the 3rd Regiment of the 4th Northumberland Fusiliers, sir. Seen my fair share of action and now living the quiet life, as it were. The quiet life? Were you not engaged in an incendiary battle with your spouse on the day in question? Well, yes. Quite. I believe this may represent a first in the proud history of the British court. Calling a juror to the witness stand is unprecedented. However, the court will hear your testimony now, juror number 4, and that of your husband. You will recount clearly and concisely the events in your home at the time of the incident in question. Sir, at once. Well. Look where we arrived. The Battle of What a great title. The Battle of Garridebs. Let's go. Yes, on the day you're referring to, the wife and I did have a bit of a skirmish. Can't recall the reason now. Knocked the candlestick over and set fire to the carpet. Soon had it out though, and got the window open.
Meanwhile, I was picking up whatever I could find to throw at him.
Plenty of knives around our place. Can't say I'd notice if one or two went missing, I'm afraid. If that balding thing in the victim's back really was one of ours, you'll have a job proving it, I think. It sounds as though it was quite the battlefield in your household that evening. Although an entirely one-sided assault, it seems.
The enemy caught us on the hop, sir. Had no choice but to dig in and take defensive measures. To be honest, if the enemy had kept shelling us for another minute, we'd have been toast. Of course, a veteran such as myself is only too aware that on every battlefield, you're just a gnat's whisker from death at any moment.
Are we still talking about a marital quarrel here? Well, I must say I'm dubious that this testimony will shed any light on the origins of this jackknife. In combat, one's focus narrows such that surroundings are barely noticed. These witnesses may not be able to offer anything more than they have testified already. This may be a dead end. And Zeeks may well be right. Well, whatever the chances, we only have this last cross-examination to uncover the truth, Mr. Naruto. Yes, I'm afraid so. Very well, Counsel. Begin your cross-examination. The Battle of Garidebbs. Yes, on the day you're referring to, the wife and I had to have a bit of a skirmish. Can't really recall the reason now.
Hold it!
We're gonna press, of course. The reason is what you told us yesterday, I believe.
Yes, that's right. If I remember correctly. It all started because of a note that was tucked into the pages of a book belonging to Mr. Garridebbs.
A rather passionate note, in fact.
But Mrs.
Garridebbs found the note, discovering her husband's little secret.
And she gave him a mighty number of slaps across the face for it, too.
What a sordid state of affairs. Hell on earth.
I say, when a chap says he can't recall such things, it's common decency not to drag it all up. And besides, half of it was wide off the mark. Anyway.
A likely story.
These waters run very deep. And what transpired next after those multiple blows to the face?
Knocked the candlestick over and set fire to the carpet. Soon had it out though and got the window open.
Alright, let's press, of course. And the fire also spread to some items of furniture, didn't it?
The bookcase, my armchair, anything of mine really.
Just so happens there was some bathwater around that evening, so I sloshed that about to put it out. A most precarious situation you put yourself in.
Ours is a 3-story townhouse on the west side of the street where the water main isn't connected yet. I have to draw water from a public water pump during the day if you need any, you see.
The lodgers are always moaning that they can't get any water at night. Although, that little mustached Japanese man buys water in bottles, I believe.
The defendant, Mr. Natsume, you mean?
Yes, he receives a stipend for his studies, you know, from his home country. Can you imagine being able to brew a pot of tea at all hours? He's obviously very well off.
Have you actually seen the state of the man?
I believe he uses all of his income to buy books.
Well, anyway, the point is I was able to douse the fire with water, fortunately enough.
Meanwhile, I was picking up whatever I could find to throw at him.
Let's press, of course. We're gonna press. Even though the room was on fire?
As far as I was concerned at the time, it was more important to extinguish my anger than the flames. When a woman wants to throw, she must throw. That is most certainly not true of a Sasato takedown, Mr. Naruto.
How did you know I was thinking that? So, please cast your mind back and try to remember. Was a knife among the items that you threw at your husband that day?
In all honesty, I don't recall. But I feel I must point out that I'm not a monster. Let me see. Some bread, a cabbage, garlic, a towel, and a sponge. A napkin.
Uh-huh. Well, we gotta pursue right away. Do you have something to add, sir? Mr. Garidebbs.
Don't shoot! Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon?
Did your wife's remark just now bring something to mind?
Nothing of any significance, no. Just that the barrage of projectiles the old thing launched in my direction was somewhat more solid than she implies. Books, bricks, and the fire poker, I seem to recall. Ouch. And the woman's aim is uncanny. She landed a direct hit with everybody. Ah! Just great, woman. We're not at home now. This is a court of law.
Oh, dearie me. I was so sorry, dear.
What's she even doing with a teapot in here?
Honestly, John, I would never have thrown such things at you, obviously.
Well, take a look at this then. How do you suppose that happened, huh? Your pipe, sir?
Had this thing in my hand as usual as at the time of the onslaught. Knocked it clean out with one of her soft projectiles. She did, yes. And when I went to pick the thing up, it was broken in two. I'd like to see a sponge do that sort of damage.
I see. Your pipe was broken.
It would never have been sent flying unless it was hit by something pretty solid. Anyway, I've managed to bandage the thing up for now.
Oh, you want to exaggerate, aren't you, dear?
I wonder what we should make of this account. Of course it's not going to be insignificant. Of course it's important. The defense believes Mr. Garidebbs' remark just now to be of great significance.
Objection!
This war veteran's words only tell us one thing. Betray a fiery wife, and pipes, as well as hearts, may be broken. Sentimental wisdom, perhaps, but hardly worthy of adding to the formal testimony. Indeed, common sense, one might say. Might one? In that case, would you at least permit us to examine the pipe, sir?
Well, I don't see why not.
Oh, dearie me, there you go again, trying to ingratiate yourself with a young lady.
Very well, the court will accept the gentleman's pipe as evidence. The pipe has been entered into the court record. Pipe, Mr. Garidebbs' pipe. Apparently it fell on the floor during a domestic dispute he had with his wife and broke.
I hope I didn't speak out of turn, Mr. Naruto. I was just feeling rather disappointed for you that your request was turned down.
Oh no, it's fine. It's very fine, Susato-san. Thanks to Susato-san, we have some new evidence to work with. We should examine it carefully. Well, thank you for that. Rebuttal, Mr. Garidebbs. Now, if we could return to the crux of the matter. Okay, before we do so, I just wanna examine the pipe thoroughly. So, there's some... oh, sorry guys. So, this is the apparent thing. We're gonna examine the spot where it broke first. It looks to be in a sorry state with that bandage around it, doesn't it? But for some reason it feels slightly ominous to me, like it's trying to shout out a warning. Probably because it's the same blue as Mr. Garidebbs' dressing gown.
I suppose it must have considerable sentimental value to Mr. Garidebbs, given that he's gone to the trouble of repairing it like this.
Either that, or he can't afford to replace it. But we have this, but I want to be thorough, so is there anything else of significance on this pipe? Maybe the mouthpiece? Is the mouthpiece? Yeah, no, we already had that, so we're gonna skip across that. And we are going to have a look here. Oh, something just twinkled inside the chamber of the pipe there.
Yes, I saw it. Something stuck in there, I think.
Let's turn it over and give it a shake. What's this?
It's a tiny fragment of metal.
It looks like the tip of a blade or something. The tip of a blade? Surely it couldn't be. Fragment of metal. The fragment of metal has been entered in the core tracker. This small piece of metal looks like it might be the tip of a knife blade. It was stuck inside the bowl of Mr. Garidebbs' pipe. Aha! Interesting. So this thingy seems very important. This is the tiny piece of metal we found in the chamber of Mr. Garidebbs' pipe.
It looks like the tip of a blade or something.
The tip of a blade.
Is something wrong, Mr. Naruhodo?
I don't really know. There's just something niggling me, but I can't quite put my finger on what it is.
Perhaps in that case, it would be wise to examine some of the other pieces of evidence again.
Yes, I wanted to examine the knife again, anyway. Just to be sure. No, we already had that, so we're gonna skip. We're just gonna skip. So we're gonna examine the jackknife again. So we already unfolded it. We're gonna do that again. Aha! So the tip is missing, huh? That's interesting.
Oh, look here, Mr. Naruhodo. Just at the tip. A small piece of the blade appears to be missing.
Wait, part of it's missing? I could be wrong, but I've just got a feeling. You remember this?
Ah, that's a tiny fragment of metal we found inside Mr. Garidebbs' pipe.
Yes, and just maybe.
Oh my, it's a perfect fit.
Somehow I just knew it. Okay, is it updated though? Did we update it? Who would have thought that the tiny piece of metal we found in Mr. Garidebbs' pipe would be a perfect fit for the missing tip of the knife from the victim's back?
It's extraordinary, isn't it? It fills me with a sense of awe. It surely proves, it's surely proof that miracles really can happen.
Yes, a more miraculous proof I couldn't ask for. Alright, the evidence didn't get updated. It's a little bit... Yeah, a little bit... It's a perfect fit. Okay, no, this got updated, so everything's fine then. Okay, that's fine. Well, thank you for that rebuttal, Mr. Garridebbs. Now we could return to the crux of the matter. What can you tell the court about the knife used to attack the victim? Plenty of knives around our place. Can't say I'd noticed if one or two went missing, I'm afraid. Okay, we're gonna press here, of course. Sorry, would you care to elaborate? Nothing to say, really. Rather partial to the sport of carving, you see. Pipes and whatnot, fishing tackle, you know, the sort of thing.
It's a passion we both share. I like to carve little wooden trinkets too. And then there's my leather work.
Sorry to say, we're always losing knives about the place, and we have dozens of things.
They sell them at the market sometimes, 20 for the price of 19. Needless to say, I snap them up. John prefers to use 2 knives at meal times too, instead of a knife and a fork.
Now, Joan, we don't want people thinking I'm some kind of...
Here we go again with the scoldings. Why are they being so evasive?
I imagine it's because they don't want to believe it. They can't bear the thought that it might have been one of their knives that injured the victim.
Which is entirely understandable, of course, but still. Go on with your testimony, witnesses.
Sir!
That bally thing in the victim's back really was one of the... Ours will have a job proving it, I think, yeah. We can. So you have no intention of admitting it was your knife unless we can produce proof? Even though there is no other credible possibility if Mr. Natsume is innocent?
Objection!
You forget, my Nipponese friend, that it has yet to be established that the accused is not responsible for the attack. As if I could forget. If only there was some way to know who had handled the knife. But I suppose wizardry like that is just a dream.
Perhaps you're thinking of fingerprinting, Mr. Naruhodo?
What? You mean it's not a dream? That sort of wizardry really exists?
Whenever people touch anything,
They leave behind a unique pattern from their skin, or so they say. But I can't see anything. There are already countries in the world where these so-called fingerprints can be used as evidence. Lord Strongheart is currently discussing the matter at the Ministry of Justice. Yes, I believe we are rapidly approaching an era of scientific methods of investigation. But for now, we shall have to find an alternative method of proving our assertion. That this knife found in the victim's back was originally in Mr. and Mrs. Garidebbs' house. If only I could transplant those whole incident to several years in the future. That's the extent of the testimony, is it? What do you think, Mr. Naruto? Well, I think we've heard all of this before, to be honest. I can't say I'm particularly confident that we'll be able to prove anything new from this testimony. But this cross-examination is absolutely essential. That we establish how this knife came to be at the scene of the incident. Yes, I know. I'm sure both of them must be feeling very worried. Worried if that in fact a knife belonging to one of them that caused the victim's injury. If we could find even a tiny shred of evidence to support that theory, it would clinch this trial for us. It would explain everything. Yes, it would. So for Sasaki-san's sake, we must find that last crucial piece of evidence. And we already did. So we're just gonna fast forward here to the... Yeah, we need some proof, huh? It was one of... Yeah, you'll have a job proving it. So we're gonna present the fragment of metal. Mr. Garridebbs, could I ask you to take a good look at this, please?
You can ask, but I can't see a ball thing.
You can't?
You used to call me Dead-Eye Dip back in the regiment, of course, but that was some time ago now. Even when I'm trying to enjoy a large print book by the fire these days. I struggle to tell a B from a D and a P from a Q, to be honest.
Oh, he does. Dearie me, it's rather wearing being asked about every other letter and every other word.
You must be very doozy. What is that? A tiny scrap of metal? Yes, almost certainly from the tip of a blade. And what may appear at first to be just a tiny scrap is in fact a crucial piece of evidence. Interesting. And where did the defense come by this evidence? It was lodged in the chamber of Mr. Garidebbs' pipe.
My pipe, you say? By Jove, I wonder how that got there.
And what precisely does this fragment of metal signify, Counsel? Are you suggesting that it is in some way related to the matter of the stabbing in Briar Road? I am. What? Sorry, guys. When put together with another piece of evidence already in the court record, I believe this tiny fragment of metal will unravel the whole truth of this case, my lord.
His butt is burnt off.
You appear rather confident in that extraordinary statement, Counsel. Very well then, present the pertinent evidence to the court. What evidence, when paired with this fragment of metal, allegedly reveals the truth to this entire case? Well, it is, of course, the knife.
Take that!
This is the knife that was found in the victim's back. If you look closely, you will see that there is a small piece of the tip of the blade that is missing. A common issue with the inferior blades sold at unsavory street markets. Criminals who use them regularly leave the tips lodged in their victims' bones. And what of this particular knife? No doubt its tip has suffered a similar fate, now languishing somewhere near the spine of the victim.
Objection!
No, that's not the case. The tip of this particular knife's blade is the very fragment of metal we discovered in the chamber of Mr. Garidebbs' pipe.
Oh,
Good grief, Lord von Zeeks! I don't believe it.
The knife from the crime scene and this fragment of metal are a perfect match.
Good golly gosh! Order! 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 Is this some sort of Eastern sorcery?
This is no magic, my lord. This is a miracle.
A miracle?
Sylvan Zeeks has figured it out, has he?
Counsel, explain this extraordinary coincidence at once.
Yes, my lord. The crucial point we have to ask ourselves here is when did the fragment of metal find its way inside Mr. Garidebbs' pipe? Something that was clarified for us in the most recent witness testimony.
Had this thing in my hand as usual at the time of the onslaught. Knocked it clean out with one of her soft projectiles she did, yes. It would never have been sent flying unless it was hit by something pretty solid. Oh, dearie me.
During the argument between these two that occurred just as the victim was on the pavement below, Mrs. Garridebbs flung this knife at her husband. However, the knife missed Mr. Garridebbs, instead striking the pipe in his hand at the time, which caused the tip to break off, of course.
Good lord!
Yes, and that is when the tiny tip of the blade found its way inside Mr. Garridebbs' pipe.
The chances of that are 1,000,000 to 1!
And yet there's no other credible explanation for how the tip of the blade ended up in your pipe. Then, after losing its tip, the knife ricocheted off the pipe and flew out of the open window.
Oh.
In short, this knife, which fell from the window of the Garidebbs' house, is the very same knife that struck the victim in the middle of the back on the street below.
oh gosh, oh dear, oh no!
Objection!
A full body theory, I'll give you that. A complex bouquet of seemingly trivial points, plausibly arranged to create an almost passable vintage. Allow me to toast my learned friend's characteristically Nipponese approach to bottling his argument. Sorry? But after all, it's just a theory. The bottle, I fear, is corked. Because you see, it's spoiled by an insurmountable inconsistency. An insurmountable what?
Lord von Zeeks, explain yourself. What is this inconsistency you claim to have identified?
An inconsistency of the simplest nature, my lord. The victim was found with the knife planted in the middle of her back. Yes, in her...
That's right, you silly little man.
Now, John, old thing, what are you getting so excited about?
Let us consider the basic facts of the case once more. The victim was walking along the pavement before being stabbed in the back and falling to the ground. If the knife that struck her had fallen from above, there's no possible way it could have planted itself into the victim's back.
Yeah.
Order, order!
Quite right, you see. That's exactly right. Then if the knight had fallen on from her above, it would have struck her on the top of her head.
Well, he's lost for words. Look.
I knew it. It never looked like his deer in the first place.
I don't know though. What really did happen?
It would appear the defense has made rather a spectacular blunder. If a theory has even one inconsistency, it cannot stand. Your theory, my learned friend, is history.
We were so close. I could see the truth. I was so sure we were on the right track. But now the way has been blocked completely. By just one simple inconsistency. Or in other words, we simply need to eliminate the one inconsistency and the theory will stand. Mr. Sato. You mustn't worry, Mr. Naruto. You were just caught off guard, that's all. And your mind went blank. But if the path you were on is indeed correct, then a way will present itself. The key to this is in the court record. I'm sure all the information you need is there.
It seems you have nothing to say, my Nipponese friend. Well, your silence speaks volumes. A tacit acceptance that your theory is fatally flawed.
Objection!
Well, guys. Oh, okay, sorry. It means that I need to sharpen my mind and dig deeper for the truth. It's a test. Well, I'm really sorry, but we have not just reached the half-hour mark, but we exceeded it quite a bit. So I'm going to call it quits in this instant here. And if you know how this test is going to unfold, you'll have to watch the next episode of The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. See you then.